My good brother and I went into the redemption story together. He was responsible for redeeming the fallen villain girl, and I was responsible for redeeming the autistic physics genius. When the task was about to be completed, the male protagonist appeared, and the progress of the strategy was reset overnight. My brother came to me and said, "Don't play anymore, go home." I said, "I'll go back if you go back." Later, we died and left the world, and took the bonus to have fun everywhere. A year later, the system suddenly resurrected. The death of the male protagonist in the novel world is detected. The strategy target uses abnormal means to forcibly recall the host. The transmission will be started in 3 seconds. My brother and I were confused. 3 seconds later, we hugged the beautiful sister and fell in front of two blackened women. The villain girl tied my brother's hands. "Brother, don't think about running away for the rest of your life." The gloomy woman next to him permanently shut down the system. "Dear you two, my brother and I have been busy for 3 years. One of us has trained the former fallen villain girl into a big star that everyone is paying attention to, and the other has trained the depressed and autistic physics genius into a new upstart in a technology company. On the night before the strategy progress was about to reach 100 and I could stay in this world, the male protagonist appeared, and all the progress was reset overnight, and 3 years of hard work fell through. After nightfall, the capital city set off gorgeous blue fireworks, and the moment they exploded, they were like stars scattered all over the sky. I guess this one was set off by Guan Yu. Brother Wolfei sat on the fence of the Cross River Bridge, drank some horse urine, and told me about the country. I told him blue fireworks are used to seal the relationship, and he actually set them off for others. After saying that, he asked me, "Why does it you don't want to set them off?" I put my hands in my pockets. I blocked him, but who knows, the system's alarm has been ringing in our heads all night, indicating that the mission is about to fail, and in another hour, the system will force us to go home. After 3 years in this strange world, now returning to the painful life of getting up early, Wo Fei and I are more or less a little melancholy. Suddenly, a ringtone broke the silence of the night, and Guan Yu called Wo Fei. Wo Fei picked up without thinking. "Guan Yu, you still have a conscience. Are you Wo Fei?" The person who spoke was not Guan Yu, but an arrogant man. "Who are you?" "I'm Kind Chuan. You is taking a shower. I have something to tell you alone." Jin Chuan said arrogantly, uncasually, "Just now I accidentally knocked over your photo. Yes, on purpose. I think I'm back. There's no need to keep your photo hanging." Suddenly there was a gasp from the other end of the phone. "Brother Qin Chuan, spare me. I don't want to think about it anymore." Wo Fei blurted out, "Fuck, are you too horny?" The person who answered the phone suddenly changed. Guan Yu, who was always calling her brother, spoke to Wo Fei in an extremely cold voice for the first time. "Don't yell at Brother Kim Chuan." Over the years, I have seen with my own eyes how much effort Wo Fei has put into Guan Yu. When Guan Yu was short of food and clothing, Wo Fei worked 8 jobs a day. Later, when Guan Yu became a big star and held a national tour, Wo Fei slowly relaxed. As a result, Guan Yu dared to talk to Wo Fei like this now. Wo Fei sneered, "Guan Yu, I told you that you are my target. If I fail, I will completely disappear from this world." "Okay, then disappear." Guan Yu's soft and artificial breathing came from the other end, and her tone was always arrogant. "I didn't force you to capture me." As the light of the phone went out, Guan Yu hung up the phone. The wind around made the reeds rustle, and Wo Fei climbed down from the bridge silently. "I don't want to play anymore. Go home," I said. "I will go back if you go back." The system chose a car accident for us to die. After all, this method is short and fast, and there is no pain. It is equivalent to a thrill before returning to the real world. As a result, after a while, the system was silent. "Host, there is a connection problem on my side. Can I change it to cancer for you?" Wo Fei and I were silent for a long time. "No, you're stupid." When we came, Wo Fei and I had decided the location of our tombstones. The sea position with excellent feng shui, and 8 big-eyed cute girls slept next to it. As a result, when we returned to the city, Wo Fei had pancreatic cancer and I had stomach cancer. After the system told us to wait for the natural death of this world, it disconnected unreliably. According to the information I found online, pancreatic cancer progresses rapidly, and Wo Fei should be faster than me, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. The next second after the system disappeared, Wo Fei had already curled up slowly, holding his stomach. Did he forget to turn on the pain shield? Damn system, I must complain to him when I get out. Pancreatic cancer is a thing that can kill people when it hurts, so taking him to the hospital for shares has become a top priority. When we went home to pack up, we went into Kinshu on wandering around the villa with his upper body naked, and his body was covered with small scratches. Kim Chuan saw us and had no sense of being a male mistress at all. If Guan Yu rushed over to block Kim Chuan, frowning, "What are you doing back?" Lo Wofei was in great pain and didn't have the energy to pay attention to Guan Yu. He turned around and went to the bedroom to find his medical insurance card. As a result, the bedroom was scattered with men's and women's clothes, and the photo of Guan Yu and Wo Fei fell to the ground and was smashed to pieces. Everything is messed up. Where is my medical insurance card? What do you need your medical insurance card? What do you need your medical insurance card for? I have cancer and I need to be hospitalized. When you shrugged indifferently, still grinning, brother, I just received your physical examination report from last week. Everything is normal. Do you think Qin Xuan has asthma, so you want to compare your illness with him? Qin Xuan walked up to Wo Fei provocatively and asked with a smile, brother, you have cancer? Why is your face so pale? Did you put on foundation? Wo Fei punched Qin Xuan in the face on the stage. She laughed heartily. Since you like to wear makeup so much, I'll give you blush. Qin Xuan was stunned for a long time and didn't say anything. Well, you rushed over and pushed Lo Fei away, pulling Qin Xuan, and couldn't hide the disgust in her eyes anymore. Get out of the house before my brother Qin Xuan and I come back. When you took Qin Xuan away, and Wo Fei drank a large glass of water. I was so angry just now. How can you be hospitalized without a medical insurance card? You pay for it yourself. Money, you can't bring it with you when you die. After thinking it over again and again, I still pulled Dong Wenru off the blacklist and called him. It was his secretary who answered the phone. Miss Dong is accompanying Mr. Gao. If you have anything to say to Miss Dong, I can convey it on your behalf. I was amused. This fucking novel world. Give me 5 million. Otherwise, I will go to the company every day to make trouble and let everyone know that Gao Yao is a mistress. I am different from Liu Fei. Dong Wan ruined. I have already obtained the marriage certificate, and I have half of his property. Anyway, Wo Fei and I have given up staying in this world. As the saying goes, the barefoot are not afraid of the shod. If there is a fallout, there is nothing to be afraid of. The other party was silent for a moment and seemed to ask Dong Wenru for instructions. 1 minute later, the secretary's cold voice came. Ms. Dong said it's okay. You see, for the male lead, he can have no bottom line. Wo Fei and I successfully lived in the same ward and played games together when we were free. In the past, we could spend a lot of money on skins, but now it's not possible. I want to save the money to give Wo Fei morphine. In the blink of an eye, a few months have passed. Wo Fei's condition has progressed faster than mine. He used to like to listen to Guan Yu's concerts, but now he doesn't listen to them anymore because Qin Xuan, the fan leader of Guan Yu, has been sitting in the audience in recent concert. He openly supports the couple. Even the nurses in the ward are supporting them. When they see Guan Yu and Qin Xuan in the same frame, they scream. Wo Fei's attacks are getting more and more frequent. When he is in pain, he can't stop it even with more than a dozen injections of morphine. Beads of sweat flow down his cheeks. Looking at his arms that were beaten into a hornet's nest, I felt bad. Why don't you jump off the rooftop? Lo Fei shouted weakly, go to hell, who will play games with you if I die? I was about to cry, and the system that had been pretending to be dead for a long time suddenly came online. Sorry, host, I finally connected successfully. The host does not have to bear the pain. The system will send you back now. Wei Wo-fei was dying at this moment. He raised his head and his lips opened and closed silently, probably wanting to say, fuck you. The system apologized frantically. We will compensate you with 30 million cash appropriately. After hearing this, Wo-fei closed his eyes peacefully. In June, Guan Yu ended her national tour and returned to Beijing accompanied by Qin Shuan. That day, the intersection near the hospital was surrounded by people, which was the only way for Guan Yu to go home. He sat in the nanny car kissing Qin Shuan, and the dense flashlights were aimed at this very couple. The popularity of the live broadcast room paralyzed the platform several times, and the barrage refreshed tens of thousands of times per second on average. Their CP fans are so excited that they are about to hug each other, Guan Yu and Qin Shuan, forever and ever. My girl finally caught up with the white moonlight who saved him. Oh, please get married quickly. Reporter squeezed through the crowd and asked Guan Yu, "Excuse me, do you and Mr. She live together? Is it convenient for us to follow you to your home for an interview?" This kind of impolite interview request is generally rejected. As the villain in the book, Guan Yu has a huge obsession with Qin Shuan. He will seize every opportunity to tie Qin Shuan and his name together, so Guan Yu answered without blinking yes. But he soon remembered that the house was not cleaned up yet, and there was a broken photo of him and Wo Fei lying on the floor of the master bedroom, so he called Wo Fei, and I answered. "Where are you?" I stared at his figure holding Qin Shuan in the distance without saying a word. Wo Fei's skinny body was lying on the stretcher in the back seat of my car. Guan Yu's tone was obviously impatient. "I don't care where you are. Go home, now and erase all traces of your existence." Guan Yu looked back. He was stunned when he heard my voice and seemed to turn his head subconsciously. Across the sea of thousands of people, he saw me sitting in the passenger seat of the critically ill car. I said, "Wo Fei just passed away from pancreatic cancer." When you were sitting in the car kissing Qin Xian, his body just passed by you. Well, you didn't react for a long time. He just held the phone and stared at me in a daze. The crowd was surging around, and no matter how much the reporters and Qin Xian asked, Guan Yu didn't answer. Then everything seemed to be cut to slow motion. In front of thousands of media, Guan Yu suddenly rushed down from the nanny car and then desperately squeezed through the crowd and ran towards this side. His face was pale and seemed to be crying something, but there were too many people and it was too noisy, so I couldn't hear it. I threw the ring on Wo Fei's ring finger out of the window and told the driver to drive. Looking at Guan Yu kneeling on the ground, I remembered Wo Fei's last words before he left. It was true that people will be trapped by the things they cannot get in their youth. Qin Shuan is one of them, and he can be one too. That night, Guan Yu's name was searched several times. Guan Yu chasing the hearse, Guan Yu injured, Guan Yu and Qin Shuan broke up. Guan Yu almost blew up my phone. I had no choice but to pull out the phone card and turn to ask the system, "Can Wo Fei really get 30 million? System, of course, King, the system found that the pain shielding function is normally turned on our side, and we will not get compensation. 10,000 grass mud horses galloped through my heart. At this point, I can only rely on my brothers to support me. The rest of the day, time passed quickly. I originally planned to use the same trick to get Dong Wanru, but his secretary was really strict and said every time that he was accompanying Gao Yao, so I lost interest in teasing him. It was Guan Yu who went crazy. He came to her, asked her more than once, "Where is Wo Fei? I've read his physical examination report. How could he have pancreatic cancer? Don't try to test me with your poor skills." I calmly threw Wo Fei's death certificate in Guan Yu's face. "Did you see it clearly? The ID number, date of death, and cause of death are clearly written." "Guan Yu, do you remember who helped you get the opportunity to release your first album when you first entered the entertainment industry?" Guan Yu opened her mouth and tears came out first. Seeing him like this, I suddenly yelled, "That's what Wo Fei got for drinking with the producer and vomiting." "Guan Yu, you are such a big shot. Every time you ascended, when you were adored by many fans, how much wine Wo Fei poured into him, how many times he went to the hospital. Don't you know it? It is true that Wo Fei took the 30 million and went back to live a good life, but it's also true that he been torturing his body desperately for the past. For a Wo Fei, everything that happened here was true. Guan Yu was yelled at by me, her face was pale, and tears suddenly flowed down like money. Qin Shuan shouted from outside the door, "I want to save Guan Yu. That man is dead. Why are you stopping me? I looked out the window coldly and said the last sentence. Wo Fei called you many times, and Qin Shuan answered every time, including the last call before he died. In fact, Wo Fei never called at all. He was so overwhelmed by the 30 million that he even thought about the days of firing his boss first and ordering car models later. But we were both vindictive, so we left, not wanting Qin Shuan to have an easy time. As expected, Guan Yu, who was ignited by anger, rushed out and slapped Qin Shuan in the face the next second. Did you delete the call records, you bastard? It was pouring rain outside the window, and I saw Dong Wanru's figure appear in the distance. She was walking towards this side hurriedly without an umbrella. No wonder he is the chosen male protagonist. Qin Shuan will never die in the hands of the villain. I laughed out loud, remembering the first time I met Dong Wanru, a genius physics girl whose life almost ended that summer because she was slandered for cheating the competition. I ran for a long time in the heavy rain before running to his side, tightly holding the knife in his hand, and said firmly, Dong Wanru, I believe you. I swear that from now on, no matter where you go, I will always be with you. The knife that day accidentally cut the inside of my forearm, and blood immediately flowed. Dong Wanru cried and kissed the scar countless times at night. Brother, you are my salvation. I watched the depressed physics genius grow step by step into a well-known technology upstart in Beijing, but after the male protagonist appeared, he gradually drifted away from him. The system asked, Host, your life is over. Do you want to leave the world? Do you need to say a word to Dong Wanru? I looked at the faint scar on my wrist and smiled. Forget it, he is here to save the male protagonist. I will just leave like this. I chose a comfortable place to lie down, and when I closed my eyes, I thought of Wo Fei's 30 million, hoping that he would keep his promise and use 30 million to support me. A few minutes later, Dong Wanru rushed into the house and saw my cold body. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for finishing the strategy and returning to the real world. A logout point has been automatically created for you. Have a happy life. I opened my eyes in the darkness, and the music in my ears was deafening. In the swimming pool, Wo Fei was holding a bottle of champagne, and a beautiful woman was shouting at me excitedly, Calm down, what the hell are you doing? Take off your clothes and jump down. People often post online, what would you do if you suddenly had 30 million? Wo Fei and I are undoubtedly good examples. We saved half and squandered the other half. We moved into a big villa, drove a Porsche, and invited supermodels to the villa swimming pool to have parties from time to time. But there was one thing Wo Fei didn't touch, and that was listening to music. He packed all the albums of the singers he liked before he traveled, threw the book and put them in the basement. When closing the door, he asked me, Do you have anything to throw away? I said, I threw it away a long time ago. 5 years of college entrance examinations, 3 years of simulations physics editions, and learning Olympic mathematics from scratch. I threw it away after the college entrance examination. Wo Fei rolled his eyes and sat down by the swimming pool. The evening breeze was gentle, and the sound of little girls splashing water in the distance had never been as real and moving as it was at this moment. Even though a whole year has passed, those people and those things always come to my mind inadvertently, even though Wo Fei and I have tacitly kept silent about them. Wo Fei sipped the watermelon juice in his mouth, tilted his head, and greeted the girl in the distance. In fact, the system came to me later, and it seemed that they had spiritual comfort services or something. I looked at him sideways and listened to him continue. He always said that it was some old dreams, just like script killing. The moment the lights came on, everything was over. But there are some things that I think only you can understand. How can you treat things that you have really experienced as fake? You know, I want to vow now when I see alcohol now. Wo Fei said with a smile, but I always feel that he is not happy. There is already a scar in his heart, which may be suddenly opened at some inadvertent moment, and then blood will flow. Just like after I came back, I always restrain myself inadvertently. For example, Dong Wanru doesn't like spicy food, and I always habitually refuse when the boss asks me about the taste. Wo Fei and I are not the winners of this game, but the survivors. The live music gradually became louder, pulling my thoughts back, and the atmosphere soon became lively again. Wo face matched the cup. I swear I will chat up all the girls tonight, I said. Me too. We jumped into the swimming pool one after another. Because the music was too cheerful, we didn't hear that the system that deserved a beating was resurrected again. He broke the life sound system and screamed at the top of his voice with horror. The death of the male protagonist in the novel world is detected. The target of the strategy uses abnormal means to force the host to be recalled. The transmission will start in 3 seconds. Lo Fei and I hugged the beautiful sister. Both of us looked puzzled, and then our eyes went black and we lost consciousness. It was a chaotic night. Lo Fei and I, holding my beautiful sister, fell into the dark swimming pool. With the sound of violent splashing, dazzling incandescent lights lit up all around, making the night as bright as day. Dong Wanru sat by the swimming pool, staring at me who suddenly appeared. The staff next to her whispered, "Ms. Lin, the experiment was successful. Should we close the transmission channel?" Dong Wanru slowly leaned back in the lounge chair behind her, her long legs gently crossed. "No need to close it." His eyes fell on the woman between Wo Fei and me, and he said cruelly, "Destroy the equipment completely, and then leave time for me and Wan Yu." Before I could react, I was grabbed by several men in black and dragged out of the swimming pool. The moment Wo Fei appeared, he was pressed to his knees by Wan Yu's bodyguards. "Brother, I knew you were not dead." Guan Yu's tone was very calm, but his eyes were full of frightening madness. He touched Wo Fei's neck and said with a smile, "You really lied to me so badly." Wo Fei seemed very calm at this moment, even a little confused. "Where is this place? Who are you?" He was like a fool at a loss. "Let me go. I don't know you. I want to go home." Guan Yu's smile was stiff for a moment, and his tears were about to overflow. "Don't pretend with me, Wo Fei. Don't do this to me." The only response to him was a pair of blank and indifferent eyes. I was amazed at the sight. Fuck, pretending to have amnesia, awesome. Why didn't I think of it? I swallowed and slowly turned my head to Dong Wanru. Dong Wanru smiled. "Why, brother doesn't remember me either?" I closed my eyes resignedly. Damn, both of us have lost our memories. It's too obvious. Wo Fei, you dog. Wo Fei, I have spent a year in the real world, and the mission world has actually experienced 3 years of time alternation. The big star Guan Yu has disappeared and has now become Dong Wanru's partner. All the efforts they have made in the past 3 years are to catch the two of us back, to avenge their grudges and to avenge their grievances. They separated the two of us very tacitly, as if this would cut off the possibility of Wo Fei and I leaving. In fact, they did it, and the system could never contact us again. Dong Wanru locked me in his villa and watched me almost every day except for work. He said, "Brother, don't worry. This time I only have you." That night, Dong Wanru was stunned when he habitually kissed the scar on my wrist. The scar disappeared, and the original place was as clean as new. He and I looked at each other calmly in the dark, and we both knew what was different. What was not made clear 3 years ago, after 3 years, whether it was obsession or guilt, it always seemed so indecent to poke the window paper and put it out in the open. But I just wanted to say, "Dong Wanru, I don't want a dog that ran away. I'm afraid it will eat shit and feel sick." Just one sentence. Dong Wanru seemed to have been hit by a heavy hammer and was speechless for a long time. In fact, Dong Wanru and I knew each other earlier than Wo Fei and Wan Yu. When Wo Fei first came here and was busy looking for his target among the young stars, I followed Dong Wanru and called her sisters, like an old mother. Dong Wanru was not like she is now. She would come to ask me if I gave another little girl a piece of ice cream and a girl. It was popular to give chocolates to boys in school. Dong Wanru was slandered for cheating in the competition, and even her scholarship was confiscated. In order to buy me a box of 500 yuan chocolates, she went out in the hot sun to distribute flyers for several days and barely collected 500 yuan. In the end, she didn't even dare to write her own name on the message in the box. He said he knew I would open it in front of my classmates. He had a bad reputation and didn't want to implicate me. Later, when he fell in the mud again and again, I would hold his collar and tell him, "Dong Wanru, get up." Later, he stood at the top and would never fall again. He could buy the entire chocolate shop on Valentine's Day, but he seemed to have forgotten to sign his name. He didn't dare to do so before, and then he didn't want to do so. I don't know when I started to find that Dong Wanru was drifting away from this relationship. It was probably the year before Kim Shuan came back. When Dong Wanru came back drunk, I found a small tooth mark on her collarbone. In fact, this is not surprising. He has been at the top for a long time enjoying the stars and the moon and has seen famous flowers and mountains. Even if he doesn't want it, there will always be someone who will bring beautiful things to him. At that moment, my brain went blank. Disappointment and anger came like waves, one after another, until I was broken into pieces. That night, I rejected his request for intimacy. Perhaps it was too uncomfortable, so I yelled at him. The panic in Dong Wanru's eyes was not fake, but he couldn't tell me. He was like most women who made mistakes. After enjoying the pleasure of indulgence, he just wanted to whitewash the piece in front of his original wife. But I couldn't do that. I laughed so hard that tears fell. Dong Wanru, don't touch me. I got very angry that night and screamed almost hysterically because I didn't understand why they could call it the name of deep love when they begged for forgiveness after making a big mistake. When I pushed him away, I accidentally scratched myself again. The moment the blood spurted out, it probably evoked Dong Wanru's memories of the past. His face turned pale instantly. He pressed my wound and begged incoherently, "Brother, just this time I was drunk. I will change. I beg you not to hurt yourself, okay?" Looking at Dong Wanru's distressed eyes, I believe that he really felt regret at that moment, but regret and desire are not contradictory. He can regret and do it at the same time. In short, this matter has become a thorn in my heart. Since he refused to divorce me, I would make some sarcastic remarks about him from time to time. It's funny to say that Dong Wanru's patience is not as long as most people's. In just 2 weeks, he reached his limit. One day, after I mocked him, he threw his chopsticks. Is it interesting? At that time, there was still the oil-braised eggplant I had just made on the table. The chopsticks flew into the bowl, and the splashing hot oil crashed onto my face, which was very painful. I watched him coldly as he stood up, picked up the eggplant and poured it into the trash can. Dong Wanru came to his senses and suddenly hugged me from behind. "I'm sorry, brother. I didn't control myself just now. I will never do it again. I'm sorry. It's really disgusting." People are always dragged into hell by huge sunk costs. If they don't make a decision, they will end up being torn to pieces. From then on, Dong Wanru's strategy progress was stuck at 99, and I was only one step away from successfully staying in this world. In fact, his system asked me, "Do you want to leave? Or don't resent it, it's not bad to stay here and enjoy the glory and wealth." I chose the second one, but not because I was reluctant to give up this overwhelming wealth, but for Wo Fei. Wo Fei and I met in an orphanage. We have been inseparable since childhood. I don't want to go back to a world where I'm alone, so I just drag my feet and live in a daze. But my casual attitude towards Dong Wanru completely made him lose patience. He began to stay out all night. Although he has never touched a man since then, his subconscious mind has begun to be assimilated by this cruel world. It is normal for successful people to be surrounded by beautiful women. Bai Yu Guang, first love, and childhood sweethearts can all be counted as his great achievements after he has achieved success. Maybe I let it slip in my sleep one time, and Dong Wanru learned about the system, so he found a reasonable explanation for his behavior. His wandering was just to wait for the real male protagonist to appear. He held my hand and said sincerely, "Brother, people cannot resist fate, but don't worry, I will never divorce you." How touching! Under the oppression of fate, he is still willing to give his original wife a marriage that exists in name only. I should be grateful. Later, Ken Chuan appeared and clung to him like a butterfly fluttering honey. I think Dong Wanru finally figured everything out. Everything she had that was enviable was enough to support her self-esteem. Why should she accommodate me? In the last year, she left me far behind like throwing away garbage and embraced her bright and beautiful life. No one knew that I took the initiative to clear 99 of the progress of the strategy, and I took the initiative to give up the redemption of Dong Wanru. After that night, Dong Wanru seemed to have disappeared. I was hoping that she would lose patience with me as she did in the past, and then let me go wherever I wanted. Anyway, ordinary people in this world are still normal. If I get a share of property after the divorce, I can run to a new place and live a good life. But until I was locked up in a villa for 2 months, Dong Wanru still didn't change her mind. She came to accompany me every night. Brother, I am in pain. I don't know what I want, and I don't know how to go on the road ahead. I suddenly remembered the system's evaluation of Dong Wanru before I traveled to this world. A genius, a depressed girl. She has unique insights into the vast universe, and her thinking is far-reaching and profound, which leads to her lack of emotional processing. Her predetermined ending is to end her life with her own hands when she touches the end of science in the future. I am too kind-hearted. I don't want to see the fall of geniuses. That's what I thought back then. But now I just look at him and sneer, Dong Wanru, if you can't figure it out, just die. 2 days later, someone came to the door. It was Guan Yin. She lost a lot of weight and was visibly haggard. There was a calm madness in her eyes. Dong Wanru, tell me, how can people restore their memories? Ah, Wofei doesn't remember me at all now, doesn't love me at all. He almost shouted the last sentence. That day, Dong Wanru and Guan Yu stayed in the study for the whole afternoon, and I sat at the door and heard the whole story. It turned out that Wo Fei took good care of himself in the past 2 months. When Guan Yu was first brought back, Wo Fei said that he had a phobia for strangers. He called Guan Yu a human trafficker and said that he would commit suicide if she dared to upset him. After making trouble several times in front of Guan Yu did not dare to force him anymore and allowed him to make phone calls and order takeout. As a result, Wo Fei did not order takeout, but ordered female models. He did the same thing as Guan Yu had a secret meeting with Qin Shuan. Several times, Guan Yu came home and saw Wo Fei sleeping soundly with a beautiful girl in his arms. Wo Fei drove Guan Yu crazy. When Guan Yu got angry, he sat on the sofa and watched calmly. Later, Guan Yu cut off his mobile phone, so he smashed all the photos of him and Guan Yu, saying that he was annoyed to look at him, that he did not know him at all, but was forced to live with him. Guan Yu ordered a pair of wedding rings and put them on Lo Fei's fingers like crazy. Wo Fei threw the ring into the trash can and wanted to enter the entertainment industry as a singer. When you help me do it, I will marry you. People chasing people spend money and resources. You don't want to get something for nothing, right? After being frustrated, Lo Fei was sarcastic and profit-seeking. One who gritted her Ethan had to use her old connections to fight for Wo Fei's way in the life and death entertainment industry. Wo Fei's new album was sung in a crooked tune and even quoted a few lyrics from Jay Chou, although I didn't hear that it had anything to do with Jay Chou. The new album was released 3 days ago and it topped the hot list. The comments area was full of curses. Which stupid person with connections doesn't know his own weight and what kind of nonsense is he singing? Get out! More than 100,000 curses were made for one album. Behind the scenes, Wang Yu accompanied others to drink and drank until she had gastric bleeding. When she woke up in the hospital the next day, no one even covered her with a blanket. On her phone was a emotionalist thank you from Wo Fei and a new word file named Wo Fei's second song. In fact, Wo Fei was also like this one winter. He fell drunk in the ice and snow and was sent to the hospital. His whole body was frozen and he had gastric bleeding. The doctor called Guan Yu more than a dozen times, but he didn't answer because he stayed in the recording studio all night to give the new album the name Qin Shuan. He tried to make this song perfect and worthy of his white moonlight, but Wo Fei fell at the first intersection after leaving the drinking party and almost froze to death in a snowy night with a temperature of more than 20 degrees below zero. Wo Fei was a vengeful person. Since he couldn't go back anyway, he retaliated more severely. After a few times, when he couldn't stand it anymore, he found Dong Wanru. Can Wo Fei get his memory back? Oh, Wo Fei is not an idiot. How could it be possible? Time seemed to have pressed the accelerator key. Just like the person who summoned the dead in the story, the one who would eventually summon would not be the one he loved. Wo Fei and I became bystanders of the story, watching the characters move towards the predetermined ending. This time, no one was cheap enough to redeem their fate. In order to make Wo Fei remember her, Guan Yu became more and more paranoid day by day. Whoa, FEI's rubbish albums came out one after another, and he was on the charts again and again. He was scolded over and over again, and it all depended on Guan Yu's own life to bear it. Dong Wanru had given up on making me change my mind. Instead, she pinched my shoulders in countless late nights and said almost morbidly, "Brother, wait for me. Wait until I develop a time machine, and we will start over." Ha ha, idiot, check your brain. Late one night, I was awakened by a familiar voice again. The system cried miserably, "WUU, host, I finally contacted you. I lost the host and my boss is about to scold me." I opened my eyes suddenly. Dong Wanru beside me seemed to have noticed something and opened her eyes. She met my empty gaze. The next moment she came over with an imperceptible panic in her tone. "Brother, why did you wake up?" At this time, the display screen had appeared in front of my eyes. The system said with a sob, "WUU, host, the system is here to take you back. The technicians have fixed the bug. This will never happen again." "WUU?" I asked. "Where is Wo Fei?" What did he say? Since I said this in front of Dong Wanru, his face turned pale instantly. "Who are you talking to? You must be confused in your sleep. Close your eyes, okay? Continue to sleep. I won't talk to you or touch you or touch you. They would talk to you or touch you, okay?" There was a hint of pleading in his voice, but I ignored him and only heard the system say, "Ah, Wo Fei has just been transmitted back and left in front of Guan Yu." Before leaving, he told him that he had not lost his memory. "They are already crazy over their hosts. I think the one in front of you is almost there. There is no time to lose." The button to leave the world popped up in front of me. At this time, Dong Wanru had already rushed over, crying and begging. "Shen Zihi, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Do you hear me? We still have a chance." I broke free from his pull and click to leave the world. At the last moment, what I saw was Dong Wanru's pupils dilated because of fear. When Guan Yu broke into Dong Wanru's villa, she only saw Dong Wanru sitting on the bed, staring blankly at the depression in front of her. The place where Chen's he had just slept was still warm. Dong Wanru touched his body temperature, and before she could react, she was pressed against the wall by Guan Yu and asked frantically, "Didn't you say there would be no problem? Why did he disappear?" After not seeing each other for a few months, Guan Yu has lost a lot of weight. Due to his long-term business life, smoking and drinking, there are abnormal purple spots under his eyes. At this moment, he looks like a complete madman. Dong Wanru was like a calm, dead water. He struggled to break away from Guan Yu, turned around, put on his clothes, and walked out. Guan Yu chased him relentlessly. "Where are you going?" "Back to the past. He has made the preparations over the years. One is to pull Chen Zhuo back from another world. If he fails, he will choose to go back to the past. He already knows what he wants. It's not too late to admit his mistakes and correct them." It was windy and snowy outside. When Dong Wanru stepped into the experimental base in the wind and snow, she ran into the experimenter who ran towards her in a panic. "Ms. Lin, the research results don't match." Dong Wanru's eyes showed hostility. "How can it not match? Hundreds and thousands of experiments. You tell me it doesn't match." The experimenter cried, "Ms. Lin, others can succeed, but only you and Miss Zhang can't. The two people I told you don't exist at all. From the past to the future, they don't exist at all." This sentence was like a heavy hammer, hitting Dong Wanru's brain hard. Her ears were buzzing, and her eyes were blank. What does it mean to not exist? It was just a short moment, and the experimenter in front of him seemed to be reset with a blank look in his eyes. He looked at the names of Shen Zhuo and Luo Fei on the cardboard and asked, "Who are they?" Then the two names disappeared, as if they were erased out of thin air. The experimenter didn't know what he was doing here, so he numbly nodded to Dong Wanru, said hello, and turned away. Dong Wanru suddenly pushed the researcher away, ran in and started the instrument. Guan Yu, who came later, was enveloped by white light and disappeared on the spot together. Dong Wanru and Guan Yu went back many years ago before they met Shen Zhou and Luo Fei. But this time, no one appeared to save them, and the life they experienced again was their original destiny. Dong Wanru was falsely accused of cheating, cut her wrists, and committed suicide, and was sent to the hospital. In the following years, she had a rough life. No one would gently grab her collar and say, Dong Wan Ru, stand up on the rainy night when she fell, and no one would gently hold her in his arms and comfort her when her company was on the brink of death, saying, no matter what the result is, I will be with you. His life was rough and miserable, bleak, and the road to the end of science was full of thorns. In the year of his debut, Guan Yu was oppressed by various forces in the entertainment industry and pressed into the dust. He struggled hard, ups and downs, and always seemed like a drowning man, unable to find the direction and the way back. No one was willing to spend too much time on a poor singer with no talent. His agent changed again and again, treating him as a hot potato. In the end, Guan Yu collapsed, killed many people that day, and then hanged himself in his rented house of less than 30 square meters. That glamorous life before appeared in front of him like a passing glance, real and unreal, and eventually turned into an unattainable bubble. When the news of Guan Yu's death came, Dong Wanru did not have too many psychological fluctuations. Rather than saying that Guan Yu was paranoid, it would be better to say that she was more paranoid at the moment. She still refused to let go. After experiencing darkness, Dong Wanru knew the value of light. As long as she was alive, she would return to Chenjuo. In the end, her wish came true in another strange way. The blockade of the soul system was done to perfection, so even if Dong Wanru tried her best, she could only go to the world where Shenjua was in the form of a soul for a short stay at the moment of death. She landed in a park full of flowers. The afternoon sun passed through his body and sprinkled on several children playing. The next second, the voice that I thought about day and night came from behind. You go to the next parent-teacher meeting. Wo Fei and I were almost scolded as grandsons just now. Dong Wanru turned her head instantly, her eyes fixed on the man not far away. Under the bright sunshine, Chen Zhuo, who had become more mature, held an umbrella to shade the girl next to him. The girl said, Coquette this lie, okay, okay? Ask the teacher to call me next time. By the way, you mean the recliner at home is a bit noisy. I asked someone to check it out and added some noise-canceling cotton. Chen Zhuo kissed her. Thank you, wife. I plan to plant some flowers outside the window. The girl answered quickly, yes, yes, sunflowers. Dong Wanru was instantly swept by the overwhelming despair. Chen Zhuo got married. Mom, Dad, the little daughter stretched out her muddy little hands, passed through Dong Wanru's body, and then threw herself into the arms of Chen Zhuo and the girl. The eyes that were the same as Chen Zhu's were staring at the man eagerly. Dad hugged the baby. The happiness in Chen Zhu's eyes was about to overflow. He lifted up his daughter's hands regardless of the mud on them, and let her ride on his neck. Every move was within Dong Wanru's expectations, and it was as familiar as the future he should have. The girl turned around and took Chen Zhu's arm and walked away, saying, are you going to have dinner with Wo Fei's family tonight? Chen Zhuo replied, he is being scolded by his wife because of dancing at the parents' meeting. Alas, this is the bad thing about marrying a big star. The dancing video will be on the hot search tomorrow. Dong Wanru walked a long way to get to Chen Zhuo. Listening to the laughter of the family, he suddenly couldn't walk. His soul became as heavy as 1,000 pounds, and it was difficult to move half a step. Dong Wanru used up his last strength and shouted 2 words in despair, calm. Chen Zhuo in the distance suddenly stopped, turned his head and looked at him from a distance. Dong Wanru's tears flowed instantly, and he froze in place, not daring to move. He opened his eyes in disbelief and stretched out his hand to Chen Zhuo. Maybe this was the second chance God gave him. Chen Zhu's wife and daughter stopped. Huh? What's wrong? Chen Zhuo said with a smile. You forgot your bag and mobile phone. You have to scold me again. He hurried back and picked up the lady's bag that was forgotten on the bench. When she turned around, the white shirt that Dong Wanru had pulled countless times brushed past her fingertips and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye, extinguishing the bright light that Dong Wanru had finally rekindled in her heart for more than 20 years. The surroundings suddenly became very quiet, and the wind blew from the distant sky, blowing Dong Wanru's soul. Darkness struck, and he eventually became a kite with a broken string, lost in the vast stars. On the other hand, after Wo Fei returned to the real world, his days seemed to have returned to peace, but he always felt empty in his heart. One day, when Wo Fei was cleaning up the basement, he found a concert ticket that Guan Yu had given him. It was a small performance ticket that Guan Yu had finally gotten when they first met. Although it was simple, it carried many memories. Looking at the faded handwriting on the ticket, Wo Fei's hands trembled uncontrollably, and those memories that he had deliberately sealed came like a tide. At the same time, in another city, a young girl was working hard for her musical dream. She has similar eyebrows and eyes to Guan Yu, but her personality is completely different. By chance, she was singing on the street and was accidentally heard by Wo Fei. The familiar yet strange voice made Wo Fei stop for a long time. After the girl finished singing, Wo Fei walked up and talked to her. He learned that the girl's name was Xu Woyi, and she loved music since she was a child, but she had no chance to develop because of her poor family. Wo Fei offered to support her for some reason. Xu Woyi was surprised and grateful. In this way, the fate of the two was intertwined again. After I returned to the real world, although I lived a plain and happy life with my wife, I would occasionally think of Dong Wanru in the dead of night. The girl who once occupied an important position in my life, her figure always lingered in my mind. Until one day I saw news on the internet that a young female scientist unfortunately died in an accident while studying the field of space and time. The person in the photo was Dong Wanru. Looking at her familiar smile in the photo, my heart suddenly hurt, as if something was cracked in my heart. My wife noticed my abnormality and asked me gently what was wrong. I hesitated for a long time, but finally told her about the time travel experience in the store with Dong Wanru. After listening quietly, my wife hugged me gently and said, "Let the past be the past. Now you have me under a family." In the process of supporting Zhuo, Wo Fei gradually transferred his feelings for Guan Yu to Zhuo. He watched Zhuo grow up step by step on the road of music, as if making up for the regrets of the past. Zhuo also developed a sense of dependence and admiration for Wo Fei, and the relationship between the two became closer and closer. However, fate always seems to play tricks on people. When Zhuo was about to hold her first solo concert, she accidentally found the concert ticket of Guan Yu that Wo Fei had collected, as well as some photos from the past. Zhuo was full of doubts and uneasiness, and she began to ask Wo Fei about the origin of these things. Wo Fei looked at Zhuo's eyes full of expectation and fear, and finally chose to tell the truth. He told Zhuo the story of himself and Guan Yu in another world. After Zhuo heard this, tears welled up in her eyes. "It turns out that in your heart, I have always been just a substitute." Liu Fei panicked and explained quickly, "No, Zhuo, the time I spent with you was all my heart. I admit that when I first saw you, I did think of the past, but now you are you, the Zhuo I liked." Zhuo shook her head and turned away. On the day of the concert, Zhuo was absent, and the whole city was talking about it. While Fei frantically searched for Zhuo, but there was no trace of her. After I learned about Dong Wanru's death, I couldn't let it go. I began to collect all the information about her, wanting to understand her life trajectory in the real world. It turned out that she had been persevering in the path of scientific research. Although her personality was still a little withdrawn, she had achieved great success in the academic world with her talent and hard work. When sorting out Dong Wanru's relics, people found her diary. In the diary, she recorded in detail her memories of that other world and her longing for me. I know that our fate may have ended in that world, but I still can't help thinking about you. Even if I experience pain again and again, I don't regret meeting you. When I saw these words, tears could no longer be controlled. My wife stayed by my side silently without saying a word, just holding my hand tightly. Wo Fei was depressed all day after losing Zhuo. He returned to the city where he once lived with Guan Yu, walked on the familiar streets, and recalled every bit of the past. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure in the crowd, Zhang Yu. To be precise, it was someone who looked exactly like Guan Yu. The man also noticed Wo Fei, and the two looked at each other as if time had stopped. After a long time, the man walked towards Wo Fei. "Hello, my name is Guan Qing. I'm an actor. The look in your eyes just now made me feel like we know each other." Wei Fei smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Sorry, I recognized the wrong person." After that, he turned around and prepared to leave. Wait, although I don't know why, I feel like there seems to be some kind of connection between us. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Well Fei agreed inexplicably. In the cafe, the two chatted for a long time. Well Fei found that although Guan King looked the same as Guan Yu, she was more cheerful and kind. Guan King also developed a strong interest in Wu Fei. She felt that this man had an unspeakable story. Since then, Wu Fei and Guan King have met frequently. As time went by, Wu Fei gradually let go of the pain of the past and began to accept new feelings again. And I, accompanied by my wife, slowly walked out of my longing for Dongwon. We all thought that life would continue peacefully. However, one day, the system that had disappeared appeared again. Unstable fluctuations in the parallel world had been detected. The host needs to perform the task, again to maintain the balance of the world. Hearing this voice, Lo Fei and I looked at each other, our eyes full of helplessness and surprise. I don't know what kind of story and challenge we will face this time.